Welcome to Back of the Rack, a gaming videocast about games long neglected and not respected. Games that everyone's heard of and hated, or no one's heard of and loved. We play the games in between the essentials and the unwanted, but mostly we play what we want to on this podcast.
You can watch us on YouTube, which we consider to be the optimal way to experience our content or listen to us in podcast form wherever podcasts are available. Make sure to like and comment on our videos and leave good reviews for podcast feeds. It helps us out and is the fuel that keeps this podcast going. We hope everyone watching and listening is doing great, and we thank you for joining us today. I'm Bendezzer, and with me as always is Sondi. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I also want to remind everybody, if you're watching us on Spotify, you can watch this with the video. This is a new thing for Season 2. I forgot to mention that last episode, too. You can watch this on Spotify for the video if you don't feel like going on YouTube, so... If you do go, I'm not promoting Spotify, but I mean, hey,
because I know, like, I'm not sure if people listen to our podcast, like just the audio, or if they watch the video more. So, I mean, if you're on Spotify, if you have us on there now, you could just watch the video on there as well.
Yeah, you don't have to have your phone all on the lock. Then make sure you don't put it in your pocket and fuck up and be rewinding the text. And you can now switch straight to audio and be at the same exact spot, and then switch to video when you want to watch it. Keep yourself on the swivel.
Like we've said, it is the optimal way to watch this show, because with the audio you don't get the cool graphics. You don't get the cool graphics, and you don't get the gameplay cut. So You're kind of just in the blind as we're describing terribly the game that we're playing. So.
Like that explosion last episode probably just blew your eardrums out, and then you were like...
Yeah, you had no context. So just like, what? What happened?
What was that there?
We should be more mindful of. But, yeah, so how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm enjoying this 3-day weekend that we're having on Martin Luther King Day. And
oh, shit, that's right.
That is today.
I completely forgot about it.
Niggas! That's one. I beat a Werewolf. The Apocalypse. It's very budget title. It was actually I really enjoyed that they didn't go out of their spectrum, and that it was very it was level to level. There wasn't a huge skill tree. There wasn't really a lot in terms of like content. It was very straightforward of go in, sneak a little bit. If you get caught, turn into big werewolf, kill people. And the combat's really enjoyable and really fun. I really enjoyed it. I didn't expect to beat it in one sitting, but it was enjoyable. I liked it. It was... Yeah, I'll probably make a video on it.
It's nice to just have a game that's easily digestible. And it's just quick, Like, you don't need to, this is another 40-hour game. It's like, no, I could beat this in one sitting and feel accomplished. Like, we need those gradients within the games that we play. Like, obviously, you want a game that's like, yeah, this is meaty. I want to fucking sink my teeth and complete all these objectives or all these quests. And then the simpler games where it's like, okay, here's a couple of little things.
I'd rather have 5 10-hour video games than one 50-hour video game. And I would rephrase that. The way I explain that is more or less, if a 7-hour, like we were explaining with State of Emergency, where it's like, if it's enjoyable the entire way through, I wouldn't mind replaying the game, trying to beat my personal record, or if it's got a new game plus, trying to do this on a harder difficulty or something of the sorts like that. Not having to deal with the fact that, like, you know how hard it is to go back to a 50-hour game?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. This is why, like, there's those games I just kind of pick up and play. But you know what? It's also weird because the way we treat games is, like, so expendable. Like, when we were young, you would buy 2 games or something, and then you'd have to go back and play those. Yeah. So you had to, like, really enjoy them, go back and replay them. So even if we're talking about, a 5 to 10 hour game versus a 50-hour game, it's really how much you want to spend in that world. Like, I want to replay this now on hard. I want to maybe explore a little bit, or I want to try out this different character or something. So I think replay value is also important. I think I'd rather have, but I don't know. It's kind of weird because I don't replay games at all, which is why I'm saying, like, I'm far more expendable with my games.
I was about to say, as I beat Sonic Adventure 2 3 times last week.
Well, I say I don't replay games, but I don't do it Like, there's not many games
that you can go back to and replay and be like, yeah, I can just go through this whole. Like, there's certain games. Exactly. I feel you on that. Where there's certain games where you replay them and then your opinion on the game becomes jaded on the replay because you're like, why did I do this as a kid or some shit like that. I do feel you.
Oh yeah.
Like I think about like Persona
3.
Yeah.
Or the first. Oh, okay.
Like just 5 in general because they gave away strikers for PlayStation Plus.
Oh yeah, which I'm excited.
And I was like, I should probably go back and beat Persona 5, and I was like, but if I go back, I should play Royal so I can understand what was going on. But
wait, did you not beat Persona 5, the base one? Did you play
I got to the part where that literally like the opening happened when he gets caught. I got to that part and I stopped playing.
Wow, when it gets good. It's good now. I'm done.
Yeah.
What's funny is that I notoriously have like 120 hours in that game. Never beat it, and I cannot like force myself to go back. I also played that game. I got it on release, and I've played it like. I guess that's one game I've gone back to, just haven't beat or ran through it. Like I just go like there'll be a month where I'll play it, something new comes out, so then I'll leave that and I'll jump back into Persona. The nice thing about Persona is that it has like the recap of each chapter, and then also the buttons are always on the screen, so you you always know what you're pressing and how to do things. The only thing is that you kind of create like these little quests in your mind, like okay,
you have a checklist.
So like you can fuse these personas to do this to beat this character. So there's that kind of stuff.
I need to hang out with Ann on Monday, and I need to hang out with her on Tuesday night, so I can get this social link up. If you hop back in the game, you'll be confused. If you hop in 120 hours, you're like, who the fuck was I talking to?
Which I did multiple times, but like it's just too those dungeons. That last dungeon, it's just too much for me. I mean, I spent 120 hours. I might as well have beaten it.
That's how I be feeling sometimes too. Where I get so close to the end, where I'm like, "Fuck it, bro, I beat it, bro." Like,
as far as I'm concerned, I beat it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll play it again, maybe. Not happening.
Yeah, it's really weird. But on today's topic, which is basically the PS2 title Choro Q, what's your familiarity with racing games? Because that's something we don't ever talk about.
I know you're a big racing stickler. Back in the day when we used to do the pickups, you used to always be like, here's a random ass racing game. It's like racing games is to you what rhythm games is to me. Where you're
I don't know. That's such a apt like analogy, but I don't know if it's that accurate because I don't know.
You're not picking up every little
Yeah, you like rhythm games, and I can't say that I like racing games the way you like rhythm games. Like,
because I'll play anything. I just played like 4 rhythm games yesterday and was just going through a shuffle of them all. Like, oh yeah, this is cool. Oh yeah, this is cool. I like this one. I'll buy the peripherals. That's how bad I'll get.
So, yeah, like with music games, you have like a passion for it. I mean, you could probably have a whole fucking channel just on your love of. But like racing games to me, I don't know. They're just one of the. I'm not good at them. Like I'm not like a racing sim kind of person. Like I don't play like GTA or not GTA.
Forza.
Yeah, Forza or
Gran Turismo.
GT. Yeah, and. I mean, those games are cool, but like I'm not that into it. But I've always just been into like cars at a very visual level, So like when it gets to the simulation, yeah, something like that, like a Midnight Club. Those are cool games, and I really enjoy them. But with this specific series, it hits a lot of points that I think I'm really into. But I'm trying to think of racing games that I'm like, oh yeah, like.
That's the weird part about racing games, like in general. Like compared to other genres, like if you say, "What's your favorite RPG?" You can name it just like that. But like racing games, you can't really say like, "Oh yeah, Need for Speed Underground 2 is my favorite racing game," and just off the top of your head, because then you think of other racing games, you're like, that one was pretty cool too. Like it's such a weird genre. because everybody's played them and everybody loves them, but nobody plays them at the same time.
I think I do have a favorite racing game. I have a couple. Like I could definitely list them. So I'm definitely more like I like them enough where I have a couple. Like Split Second on the PS3.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
I really enjoyed that one because it's just like so ridiculous and like action heavy.
Chaotic.
Yeah, I love that. And then I mean, well, this is one of my favorite racing games technically, Choro Q. Road Trip though is kind of the same, so maybe I'd put that in that camp. But there is I think I like driving cars is the thing. So when it's racing, it's like becomes more competitive, and I'm like, it's fine. I still get to drive a car, but like driving trucks and stuff like that. That's why the game, which we should probably do a back of like digital on, the game American Wilds, Snow Runner, Mud Runner.
Oh,
Mud Runner. Yeah. So American Wilds is the DLC to Mud Runner, but then there's also, it used to be a PC game or something called Spin Tires. Yeah. And the one I played is Mud Runner, and that's on the PS4. And then they have like a sequel which is called Snow Runner, which I have not played, but yes, Mud Runner though, like it's a car game, but like it's take your time. It's like not competitive really.
It's like a puzzle game with a car where it's like
it's so relaxing, and it's just like so like just hearing the tire like
in the mud
hit the dirt and shit, like the crunching of twigs. It's so like sonically pleasing, and also the physics of that game are really good. The mud, the way it tracks on the tire, and it's just this like you're driving on these trucks and they have weight to them, and it's so good. Like we had to play it. I think you would like it. It's not too hard. I think once you kind of get the groove of it.
PlayStation Plus, right?
I actually don't know. If they did, I fucking missed it. But I have it.
Or maybe I have it on Steam. Maybe that's one of those weird games that I just have on Steam that I don't know how I got. Because I do remember seeing that game a lot, and I might be because I was scrolling through my library of Steam games, like, not that one, I'll play that one.
It's one of the only games that I feel like really, like, oh, you're a guy because you like this game. Because I don't know, like, to think of it in terms of like, and this is a good thing to talk about for Choro Q as well, just because like, there's games like, let's say Persona 5, like that immediately you get a sense of that kind of person and their visual taste. Like, oh, you like a game like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something that really, so something like Neptunia, like you kind of get like, oh, what the fuck, you gay nigga. Or like you kind of just get like, or I'm trying to think of games that look like maybe girly. Like I'm just trying to think of like the best way to approach this because I don't want to step on too many toes.
Singing so, like, Kagura is a good one where you're oh, you're one of them.
But the visual style, it's like girly. It's like more feminine. You know what I mean? Like there's like if you like you're not going to be caught playing Bratz. You know, like as a guy, you would play it, but it's like
those Bratz games on GameCube are actually really fun, bro. Don't
I know I have them. I have them. But what I'm saying is that like Mud Runner has the visual style where it's just like that's a dude's game. That's like a, you know, it's like Hooters the game, but it's just trucks. I'm driving trucks in the mud. That's not, you can't get more like that's a guy.
Yeah,
dude. Yeah. You know
I have
what I mean?
A friend that he's now a real truck driver because he really enjoyed playing American Truck Simulator. Like we bought it as a joke. We played through it. We were playing it like on like there's like multiplayer and there's like servers and you can drive around trucks together and be like, hey, do. And he actually loved it so much that he started modding for the game and started putting people's actual trucks into the game and like making like the side panels and the designs and decals and stuff. He would just play it all day, racing wheel and everything, just driving a truck. And now he actually drives a truck.
Damn, what a way to find. That's the power of games, ladies.
That's the power of games and racing games in general.
I played Persona 5 so much that I decided to go back to high school and gather some of my friends and try
And steal people's hearts.
and steal people's hearts. All right. So now I'm a high school detective. I guess is what they are, kind of. Yeah. So to announce our game again, it's Choro Q. Let's talk about some of the little details, the facts about the game. So, this game was actually a little bit confusing because this series is so. It seems like it's a modular series for the company Takara, which is they own the IP of Choro Q, but they've sort of handled. They've given it to so many different people, and it's been on so many different platforms. This series that it's sort of hard to pin down who was doing what at any given point, and there's been a lot of releases that haven't been released overseas, and even the covers for them are different from the Japanese versions. So
Vastly different.
Like the Seek and Destroy one looks like that game looks like a
generic
war sim or something. Yeah,
but it's a combat version of this game, of this series.
Yeah,
there's a boat spinoff, there's a plane spinoff, there's a strategy tactics spinoff game on the DS. There's a one because these are based on an actual toy. Because Takara, they've also made these. They're the pinback toys, the cars that you grab and you pull them back and then you watch them go. This is what the Choro Qs are, and they've also made Blades. And there was a Game Boy game, I believe, where it's the actual toys. And you have to pull them back and have a race, and that's your turn, trying to bounce them off the wall and see how far you can go, and a limited number of times you can pull back the car. They just get weird.
The same with, wait, didn't you say that they also made Transformers?
Yes, and they were the original creators of Transformers as well.
So, like, this is news to me, and it's also like, I mean, this company's pretty big, or at least has enough industry clout to have Transformers, Beyblade, and maybe to less popularity, Choro Q. This version was published by Atlas, which is like the only Atlas published Choro Q, which is interesting. And this was released in the fall of 2004. Yeah. Which how old were you in 2004?
In 2004, I was 7.
Holy shit. You were 7? Okay, so if you were 7, I was 12. 7 and 12, those are very, like, psychologically speaking, our minds are still developing.
Yeah.
You know, my tastes at that point are sort of like being
mostly developed. Yeah.
And then yours, you don't even have any taste. You're just taking whatever, and then
midnight club and basketball. Like I was the fuck, guys.
Yeah, you were still very influenced by others at that age, where it's like, my cousin's doing this, my daddy's doing that. I didn't have a dad, so, but happy MLK Day. But so yeah, like that year, 2004, was also a pretty big year for PS2, which. This is what we played on, and this is what the game was released for, PS2. There was like a revolution with graphics and how things looked. There's a lot of more serious games too coming out, as games kind of moved from like the more like, oh, this is just for kind of kids, and like more people started to own PS2. So the audience, the palette of games was being increased. And there was like more serious games. I can't think of any right now, but like God of War. I think if you have a PS2 catalog, you sort of know that there is a
Chances are it probably came out in 2004, one of your favorite PlayStation 2 games.
Right. Yeah, with Choro Q, this specific game feels like it should have been released in the 90s. So I just feel like 2004 is an interesting time for a game like this to be released because of its look. It's, I don't know. I mean, I just feel like it sort of looks like a game that would have been released in the 90s, given like its color palette, and also it's a budget title. But we'll sort of get into the presentation. Do you have anything else to say about like the developers or?
The weird part about this game is this is the 6th game to be released in America, but it's also the 4th game in the Choro Q series. Yeah. Like in America, you mentioned it earlier, it goes by Road Trip. It either goes by Road Trip, Penny Racers, Seek and Destroy for the tech, or Gadget Racers. It gets so much of a toss-up that you're like, I don't know what, like you were saying how you picked up Road Trip and then you pick up Choro Q and you're like, oh, these are the same game, like same series, but like me, I never would have picked that Road Trip. I would have been like, what the hell? Get that ugly stuff out of here.
It is. It looks, that cover for Road Trip looks terrible. And I think that the marketing team might have had trouble, and I think this was the case for a lot of PS2 games, or just games originally. Like there's videos on YouTube that show, I guess, game covers versus their counterparts in Japan and America. So like the covers for things were very different, especially if it was like, you know, produced or developed in Japan. The cover would typically be different for America and also like Europe and stuff like that. But the differences were vast. So I think the marketing team had trouble marketing this game, and so this is why you get the drop of like the Choro Q and like, oh, just Seek and Destroy or Road Trip, and then the covers look so different. You know, like if you were at a store and saw both Road Trip and Seek and Destroy, you would not think that they're gonna play similarly or even look. Yeah, but then when you pop them in, they look like the same thing. They just look like they're built on the same engine. They have the same visual style. There's like a chibi tank or like, you know, chibi car.
Same aesthetic, same
color palette,
essentially.
Yeah. So it is interesting that like the marketing team was like, okay, we need to make this tank one look more Americanized, and then Road Trip also that cover's so ugly. Road Trip needs to look like some.
I don't even know what the name is of the damn game because there's so much shit on the cover. It's so weird. Like, is it Road Trip Adventures? Is it Road Trip Everybody Road Trips?
Yeah, it's really ugly for sure. So I think with Choro Q being the latest or one of the last games that was released by them, I think second to last. I think they were like, all right, fuck it, let's just do Choro Q. Let's just put the name and we'll use the same Japanese cover. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that this game sold too greatly.
Especially because it was sold at $20 day one.
$20 was it? I thought it was.
That weird page in the gaming magazine that I found that had Second Sight and Choro Q. It said it was for $20, and like Second Sight was like $49.99 or something like that. And I was like, that's interesting, just to see the stark price difference, and also for both the second games of each season.
Yeah, I mean, it's a budget title for sure. And I sort of like what you put on here, which is oddly no anime based off this property.
Bro, this feels like this should have like a little anime with like a Saturday morning cartoon on Nickelodeon or some shit.
Or like an OVA or something, just like a one-off.
Yeah. You know? Like, you know the Hot Wheels? Do you remember those shows? Like the Hot Wheels shows that used to come on?
No. Hot Wheels shows?
Or was it Hot Wheels or was it Transformers? It was one of those where like all they fucking did was drive. And I want to say it was Hot Wheels. I pray to God it was Hot Wheels. But I want to say it was like Hot Wheels, and they would just fucking race all day. And they would like fight other people and be like, do like car combat, like car food and shit. It was mad weird, but I feel like Choro Q should have had an anime just like this. Also, seeing as the other two series that Takara has made that was really popular here, like Beyblade and Duel Masters. Well, for the time. It was cool at the time. Duel Masters. They had animes. You know what I mean? They had Saturday morning cartoons. Like I still sometimes like turn on the TV and see Blade Blade, whatever the new Blade Blade is, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. Choro Q could have had one where the kids they throw their cars and then they have like a big ass racetrack and they're like, go, nah, nah, nah. And then it summons a fucking dragon and eats the other car and knocks it off and it goes, whoa, like hire me.
Yeah, you'll be working for Koei and Takara.
Speaking of Koei, you know what? I'm gonna say it. This is the racing version of Musou games.
What? Explain. I want to hear your explanation.
Okay, here we go. Because it's a lot of games in a series with small incremental changes in between each game. And then they'll have
so you're talking about like the
structure of not the actual gameplay, but like the structure of how they instead of like I'm trying to think of like other sequels. I tried to turn around with a green screen behind me. I'm stupid as fuck. Like, okay, Resident Evil. Here we go. Resident Evil.
Okay.
Like 1 through 3, kind of the same thing. But then 4, it's like a huge leap in like technology, changes the camera angles, changes the entire gameplay flow, how things move, but it still feels like Resident Evil. It felt like a natural progression of the series. You know what I'm saying? Or like this game doesn't, I mean, from what I've seen from the other games, watching footage of them, they all seem like they are this game, but just with small differences in between each one. Like this one might handle different. This one adds these different mechanics, like spinning out and stuff like that. Like how Dynasty Warriors would do, where it's like still the same thing. We're just going to add some more characters, add some more movesets, add a couple different little features to make it a little bit different this time. And then we'll remove it next game and add some different features and just piecemeal them all together. That's how I feel with these games as well, too. But I haven't played all the games and half of them aren't even in America. So,
yeah, I could see why. I can see the comparison for sure in terms of how the company is handling its franchise, for sure. I could absolutely see that correlation. I think what's interesting about just Choro Q and the whole like Japanese stuff, like usually in this part of the podcast we will talk about the developers, who developed it, but like specific members, maybe like who directed it and maybe who produced it, people who did the art. You know, we usually touch on it a little bit. Now, at least we try to, but there's like no information about these games
at all, or the developers.
Yeah, and if there is, it's like a different developer that you like you can't say that, oh well, you know, we found that Road Trip is developed by E Engine or what was it called?
Or some shit.
Games, and they have a different team, so I can't like assume that it's the same team because it's a different developer for this game. So it was really hard to find who it was that directed it. I wanted to know who did like the art design. I wanted to know who did the racing. I made a joke. I
really believe that shit.
I made a joke to Sondi about. I was like, "Yeah, did you know that the guy from Gran Turismo did the racing or something? Something like super vague." Where I thought like you would be more skeptical, but you're like, "Yeah, it's no wonder. I mean, it feels."
I immediately was like, that makes sense why it's ass. Oh man.
Yeah, but so we couldn't find much on it. So let's sort of just talk like give me your overview, your overall thoughts on this game, and then we can sort of go into the usual, which is presentation, story, and gameplay.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I felt the more I played this game, the more it lost its magic. I wrote that literally with pen and paper with my notes with this game. And it's not a bad thing necessarily. It might just be because of I don't want to say the structure of how we do this podcast, but because this game is not a marathon or a sprint. It's a, what the fuck is the analogy? It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. What? What the
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the analogy. Yeah,
I don't know. But listen, okay, this isn't a game that you would play for long periods of times. This is a game that you would play maybe a race or two, or you would just play like a literal month in the game, save it, turn it off, go about your day. Because the more you play and the more you like, I felt myself like as a kid, I would probably play the fuck out of this game. I'll be like, yeah, I gotta go here. I found this cool thing. Like, if I had a friend that would play it, I'd be like, yo, dude, did you get the devil wings? Do you know what to fuse it with? That's so cool. Like, looking up guides and stuff. Like, it would be cool. But because I want to beat this game. Like, I like the charm of it all. I like the aesthetic. I like this music. I like the art style. I like the tracks. I thought the tracks were probably the best part of the game. I like the events, certain events, because for inanimate object cars, you know what I mean? It's hard to feel emotion, especially with the presentation of how it is. You kind of just drive into somebody's house and go, hey, and they just tell you their life story.
There's no like facial expressions essentially because they're cars.
Yeah, but there's certain events that it can make you feel and make you emote and go, whoa. Or there was one event where, for example, where you go to a cake shop and this lady's like, hey, this is the delivery, delivered to this guy. Say it's from Sandy, I guess her name is. I forgot the name. And you deliver it to the guy, and the guy's like, quit fucking playing. She's been dead for 10 years. She didn't deliver this cake. And then you come back and you're like, no. There's a note attached to it, and like I guess she pre-bought a cake for their 10-year relationship anniversary, but she died, and so she gave him the cake to like remind him of the anniversary, but also to be like, I hope you're a good racer now, and then he becomes an actual racer in the races later on because he's like, you know what, I did give up on my dream, but not anymore. I'm going to do it, and you're like, I was like, wow. That's really thoughtful. I like that.
Well, it's that's more of a product of it being a good like it's
Good
just
writing.
good writing and it's compelling. And so like you don't. It's like when you read a book. There's no actual expressions unless otherwise like it says, oh, Cindy looked quizzical at this or something. Yeah,
Define
like,
quizzical.
Yeah, like you're just like reading it and you're just like, okay, like, this is.
Like
but it's engaged and you build it in your mind, and I feel like that's where you insert like, oh, this is how this character would feel, or like, oh, that is a little melancholic, or
like I guess just to put this, I guess bluntly, is that the more I played this game, the more analytical I got because of the systems not meshing together with the loop that they tried to present for the game. Like the gameplay loop of you race, get money, buy upgrades, race some more is a really fun system, along with the extra branching trees of events, the town, part-time jobs, crafting. But all this stuff is not, I don't want to say properly executed, but could have been executed better to amplify the rest of the game, to make me excited. Because after a certain point, the excitement of, oh, I wonder what this race is going to be, or I wonder what this upgrade is going to do for me if I do this race again, kind of fades away. And I'm just like, gotta do this again. You know what I mean? That's my feelings on this game.
So you had no prior experience with this game
at all, like, until I put it in for this podcast.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure I played, because we usually will talk about like our experience with a game if we've played it, when we're younger. So I actually played this game when I was younger, and I would say a probably nostalgic bias towards it for sure, but not so much this particular game. More Road Trip, because I played those two kind of back to back, not knowing even that they were related, but just figuring out later on. But yeah, I played this when I was, I want to say a freshman. I played it later, so I was a freshman in 2006, so 2 years later. And I remember this was a time where I played a lot of these games that sort of where my tastes started to develop, and I was like getting more into gaming, and I was more able to like comprehend games and like pay attention to them. And yeah, I remember late at night I went to my bookstore, not my bookstore, game store called
I'm gonna be
Bookman's,
like,
by the way.
how do like your
And
bookstore?
they yeah, the game store that I would frequent has both books and the games. And it's a massive store. So I'd go there and I remember picking this up, taking it home, and I'm like, what the fuck? What is this? Okay, whatever. Pop it. And it was cheap, and it was like 10 to 15 bucks or something when I first picked it up. And you could probably pick it up for the same price now. Yeah, so I popped it in and I'm like, okay, story in racing games, I'm like, that's probably just like Grand Prix. Like I'm
Yeah,
not you know. I'm like, okay, what like so I remember a lot of the games I chose had to be usually had to have some sort of multiplayer component because I had like, younger siblings. So I was like, okay, well, this has, two-player racing, whatever. We'll play this. So I remember my cousin was over and we played it. I was like, oh, okay, cool, like little cars, there's you could play all the mini games that are in the actual in the story mode. But again, that mode was not in my mind at all. I was probably gonna return the game. And like after my cousin left and I'm alone there with the game, I'm like, all right, let's see what the story mode is real quick. Just fuck with it. And then you're presented with the whole story about these little cards.
immediately
This,
you go,
like a
what
whole
the
lore.
fuck?
Yeah, like it even opens up and you like get to choose your car, your starter car, and then you have a house. So it's like already really charming and very like it's like that rug. I don't know if you remember that rug as a 90s kid. It was like a rug. And then it was basically a town and it had like streets, but it was like a
Oh,
rug.
yeah.
And then you would
yeah.
run you would like as a little kid, you would like use your cars and like fucking just pretend like, oh, this is the fire
I would use
station.
my fingers.
You would walk.
I just walk my fingers on it.
But yeah, like I played. That was one of my favorite things to do as a little kid. My love of like that kind of stuff came from those situations where I'm like, oh, this is a cute little town and you're in a little car. And so, anyways, this game filled that imagination, but not like in a video game. I don't know if that's their intention, but from the way that the towns are designed, which is like very like rectangular and just like straight like cross streets, it's like not super inventive in any way. It's pretty basic. It makes me feel like maybe their intention was to have that like little car racing through the streets and you're like controlling it, especially with the top down view that you have.
And it does make sense when you think about they are the actual cars that you would put on one of those mats and like just go.
Exactly. Yeah. So I remember just like being really infatuated with that. I was like, wow. And then like the music, it has a very, I would call like a Japanese nostalgic aesthetic to it. Like it's a very warm and not just like, not in color, but it's like a very soft sort of palette to it. You have a lot of like warm and soft colors that I think make it almost feel like a baby game. Like if you look at it from far away, like if you're like an adult and you walk in and you're seeing someone navigating through these menus, you'd be like,
what the fuck, bro?
Is it a game for kids? What is this? What is this, pussy? So yeah, and that's kind of why I was talking about earlier, like with Mud Runner, where it's like, oh, that's a man game. You're playing like it's probably like deep and complex. Well, this game is deceptively deep. Whereas in like I thought it was just going to be like a mini game kind of racer with these little cars, but you get to build your car essentially and modify it to an extent that I wouldn't think most kids would want. Like it's far more complex for sure in that aspect. And then there's the aspect of the story, which I can't really recall what it is because it was so sparse, but there's like an old racer and he's like, we need like a hero in the streets. Essentially, we need you to get in there.
You out there to be racing. We the real nigga in the streets.
Yeah. And he's, you go talk to him and he like gives you, well, I'll just summarize here, for this part. But yeah, like he gives you quests and stuff and you go do them. And it's somewhat obtuse in the way where, like you were saying, Sondi, where it's not clear what needs to be done next. And it's not clear what important event needs to be triggered in order to progress the entire story. But there's a lot of exploration and a lot of your own personal inquisitiveness sort of comes into play, because you, being as inquisitive as you are, and probably a completionist, you went inside every house to
10
figure out what
times.
to do next. Yeah, I didn't even.
I would literally go into a house, see if something happened, leave, go right back in, and just do that 10 times until something fucking happened. And if nothing happened after like 5 or 10 times, I'd be like, all right, next house. That's how much I went into there until I figured shit out.
I think what really makes this game great to me, or makes me so positive on it, is like the sort of all of the all my expectations sort of being shattered, you know, and just like it being far more deep, far more complex, far more charming than it has any right to be, given that, for one, it was a cheap ass game, and even at full price, it was $20.
Yeah,
you know, and yeah, I think that alone, it has a lot of problems in terms of physics. The graphics aren't that great, you know, for a 2004 PS2 title. Like, it could probably be a little bit better for sure, but it does so many things like uniquely that I feel like it still stands on its own and comes into its own in a lot of ways. And
it was very refreshing when you play it through, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just like very like, this is a racer that it's just surprising to me that there's not more of these types of games, and that sort of goes into one of the central questions that we wrote about, which is were Japanese games more willing to experiment with open-ended design, and not even just open-ended design, but like mixing a racer, like what looks like a party racer, with like a RPG, full-fledged, like giving quests. Like some of the mini games really put it over the top, because it could have just been racing for everything, but they did like, oh, here's this haunted house mini game,
Firefight,
go back in time. If you go around this fountain, like did you do that? Did you go back in time?
I just wanted to make sure you did that shit too, because that shit was cool.
Yeah.
So.
It was so it was like,
cool.
What? And like doing little side jobs. Like there's so much there was so much to this game at that time that I think was so innovative and you didn't see in racing games, that I feel like this is one of the many innovative PS2 titles that just kind of gets swept under the rug or whatever. And I think maybe it's because of its sort of kid style, like his kid, not kiddish, that's not even a word, like it's sort of adolescent looking style, like a Fisher Price Gran Turismo. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, this feels like it should have its own Stardew Valley like fan game that somebody made that includes all the quality of life features that we beg for but never get in the Harvest Moon game. How that Stardew Valley did that. I feel like this game should have one of those on Steam already.
Yeah, it should. I'm surprised it doesn't have any game. Yeah, like a game inspired by, because you were pointing out that it has a lot of not Stardew Valley, Harvest Moon in it. It has a lot of that, which is another like Japanese, was a Natsume.
Yeah.
So yeah, sort of has a lot of those sensibilities, because you know it has that somewhat obsession with like, oh, each month you have to do something. So each month you come back to do a job. Each month you do a couple races.
These events only happen in this month.
Yeah. So which is very like, what is it? Horizon?
Harvest Moon. It's story of seasons now, because they don't have the rights to harvest their own fucking name anymore. I don't know. This shit is weird. Seasons. Ever since Stardew Valley came out, they've been trying to copy Stardew Valley, and it's been like horrible. So weird. It's really weird. Like they've just gone down. Just play Rune Factory. Those
like
are
Animal Crossing too. Animal Crossing kind of has like this similar, like, you know, you're in like a village, but this is like a city, and you have like everybody's a character, you know. But
yeah,
let's move into presentation and sort of break down like the graphics and menus and
all that jazzy wazzy. Yeah. I see where we get our aesthetic from.
Yeah, if you guys didn't notice, the a whole back of the rack aesthetic was a sort of a cross between like a lot of PC 98 anime games and like fighting game character select menus and this game. I would say like the whole aesthetic that we have, like with the yellow and or green for this season, scrolling background and stuff like that, came from like that. Because I thought it was no one seems to have anything like that. So
It's fucking cool, bro. Like I
so
love
I
the
pulled from
aesthetic
that.
of this game. I love. I think the best part about this game is how intricate and how different all the tracks are. You'll be racing on a full NASCAR track one race, and then the very next race you'll be racing on top of a dinosaur with earthquakes happening, and then this one's out of space. This one you're actually a little baby car on like in a house and stuff like the way that they differentiate each island and how their themes and having to have different gear for each track. I thought that was really interesting. And that was the main highlight for me where I was like, wow, this is really good. I like this.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite track?
My favorite track. Oh Lord.
I can't remember some of the names, but yeah, the tracks.
I would say Planet Jump because I do vividly remember that one because you have to do an event to even unlock Planet Jump to appear in the Grand Prix. And then when I saw it in the Grand Prix, I was like, yo, this is crazy.
I see. I didn't play Planet Jump in the Grand Prix. I think I just played it in the Fighters Cup or
one of those cups, one of those like generic cups, right?
yeah, one of like the early cups, and it was so difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, the low gravity and this game's strong suit isn't physics, unfortunately. I feel like if it did have good physics, it'd elevate the game, but
it'd be too
here nor
powerful.
there. Yeah, it would be. It would be honestly, but yeah, the track. I think you're right to say that the tracks are a standout. Like they were all very unique. As like I guess kart racers typically have very fun and like unique racetracks. Yeah, like Mario Kart or the Chocobo racing games or Crash Team Racing.
Yeah.
Like there's games that like they need like that silly like
you
we're
fly
at a
in the air
carnival.
and
Yeah.
jump through some whoops, go underwater.
Exactly. And yeah, the tracks are super charming, super fun, and the tracks were also some of your competition, I would put it. Because, the tracks they were off-road or it might be raining, so you had to like sort of get familiar with the track so that way you build your car around it.
And this game is you can't just drive normal. Like I don't want to say drive normal, but in racing games a lot of the times you just hold X or R2 or whatever the gas button is until you finish the race. But this game you have to actually stop, you gotta actually do turns and like spin. And I like the feeling, even though I hate it when it happens, but of fucking up a turn and going and crashing, like or going too fast into a turn and spinning out. Like I really like that. That feeling that it brings
losing
to you.
Control.
But I hate when people decide I'm going to be an asshole and get right in front of you and then break.
There was some pretty aggressive AI. So back to like the more visual aspect of it, when you're racing and like the way it indicates that you're speeding up with like the little like I don't know if you remember that,
yeah,
but like
when you like get past 6 feet and it goes
yeah, like there's like a little like effect, a very anime effect on the car that like shows that you're going faster. Like little details like that really like just made it more than it. They didn't have to do all that. Yeah, like there were so many like little details where I'm like, for a budget, like why would they had love obviously for like what they were doing in this.
Or like the racers when like you pass them and then they have like their little quips like you're not beating me, you're just getting lucky. Cool shit like that it gives you a little more prime to be like I'm racing and they're not just like nameless cars.
Yeah. And it's like delivered in like a JRPG text bubble, like it's just like, oh hey, yeah, you stay behind me and like things like that. So it's I mean, just visually, like that kind of stuff is striking, and it sets it apart from other racing games. Um, I think a criticism I have though visually is with the towns all feeling the same.
Yes, I can agree
Um,
with that.
I think it would have been cool, like like the racing islands, like to just go to those, and there'd be a town on each one of those islands,
That
as
I was going to
opposed.
say that as well too, as opposed to just three random towns that don't really
Yeah,
correlate between each other. And even then, I think the presentation of having to get out your car, listen to drive to another spot, wait for a loading screen, just for them to tell you, what the fuck are you doing here? Get out. And then here.
yeah,
It can
yeah.
it can get really annoying after a while.
Right. Yeah. For for anyone wondering how this all works, so you're dropped into a town. You get to pick your little house, and it's like a red, pink, or yellow, green,
Green
pink,
or blue, green,
blue.
pink.
Yeah, something like that. You get to pick the house, and they all look the same. It's just like your save slot, but it's like another little like charm that they're like, oh, what if we did this for this? And it's just it gives it a little bit more character. So you pick your house, and then you're in this like sort of I guess it's your garage is what they call it. They don't call it your house. And you're basically, you have all the options, and all the options are laid out on these little cube tiles that spin when you select them. So they have like this little animation, which is also like they could have just done like a flat uh panel
Like how
type
they
of
do in the
thing, and then
pause
like a list.
menu. Yeah.
Yeah, like yeah, exactly. But they added more character to that, and then your little cars on the side, so like you can always see what your car looks like. And then you have the exit button, and when you go out into the town, you hear the same theme all the time, and it starts out very annoyingly. And it's also you can't lower the volume of the music,
Yeah,
which
at
makes
first
it
it's
even
cute. It's
worse.
like dun, 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 and you just walk out and you're like, oh yeah, I'll just drive a little bit.
Yeah,
But
because it
after
resets every
50
time you go.
hours,
Yeah, after a while it gets a little grating for sure. But yeah, so there's three towns. There's the first one called Bracky Town. The second one is Pokey Town, and then the third one is
Pocky.
and the and then the third one is Nyaki, something like that.
Yes.
And they all kind of have like a different visual flair. Like the first one is like your standard like
starter
clean,
town.
yes, like Pallet Town from Pokemon. Like it's very
Right.
clean. It's fun. I like it. I like the town. And then you go to the next town, and it's basically the same thing but dirtier and like run down. Like the streets and the asphalt.
The grass is
has
yellow
cracks.
or like an orangish yellow.
Yeah, houses have like more textured
Graffiti on them.
yeah. There you go. And then the third town has also a little bit of character too. It's seems like the city is set on a river or something, on a body of water, because all the houses are elevated above of like water. So it's like the entire town is like a bridge, but like I don't know how you would
connected,
explain
like
it.
a bridge
Yeah,
of
like
turns.
yeah. So it's that one's interesting, and that's probably like the most boring. I don't what
That's
not boring.
my least favorite town because you would have to drive through the other two towns to get to that town to do something, and it's like, if I'm coming
Yeah.
here, it better be worth it.
I do, however, like the little like
The
when you're
flare
going
of
from one town to another, it
the
like
little tunnel
shows
one.
you. Yeah, there's little stuff like that. I'm like, oh, cool. When they could have just faded to black, and then it's a budget title, but they did more, and I feel like it
Yeah.
really shows. And then more on point would be the cars, because that's like what you see most of, and they're in this like chibi style. Like these are like tiny cars, like they're just like but you have like your BMW like body kits, and your Nissans, and even old cars, and like cars you've probably never seen,
And they can get a little bit
European
weird.
cars.
Like you can get a stove, you can get bulldozers, and
Yeah, you can get. I think I
Flying,
unlocked like a
like-
bear, like a panda bear. Like it's a panda. Like yeah,
I unlocked
So-
like a jet, but it was on wheels. And that was like my go-to car was the jet. It was so weird.
that's cool. I hope you show gameplay of that. That's cool. I didn't get that one.
OVA.
But yeah, I think I just used like this what looked like a Mazda RX hatchback or something. It was cool, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm using this one." But I definitely like I've said in some other videos, I like vans, like
I
little
like them
short
blocks.
Japanese. Yeah, exactly. I like those blocks.
I like them blocks. I like the
Um,
tires. The tires when you go to off road and they're big as shit. They're like monster
yeah,
truck tires, and you're like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah. So like a lot of fun visual designs, all the cool little things you could put on your car. I didn't try as many as I wanted to because one, they were expensive, and I was like, I can't. I
I
really
need
spend
to,
money on
I need to
this. Yeah.
save this.
But yeah, there's like
What did you
bumpers
just
you
say?
can add. What?
What did you just-
I said there's bumpers you can add. What?
No, the way you said it, you were like, I can't be spending my money like that. You sound like
Yeah.
Lil Wayne. So weird.
Oh my god, I can't do something like that. Yeah. So like there's a lot of visual aspects to it, and then it's all like in this. I swear, it just feels so 90s for some reason. Like the whole
But it's a good like aesthetic and 90s to it all. Like the presentation just
Right.
feels good. Like there's nothing really bad other than the audio at some points.
Right.
Because their engine sounds, once you upgrade your engine, you don't really think about it. But in the beginning, it's ear rape. Like the way, like it
does not sound good.
Horrible.
Yeah. And even like the way your tires screech is slightly different depending on the tires you have. So even the audio, while you can't really turn down certain things, it's either sound on or sound off. They did pay a lot of attention there, and that detail, I think goes a long way. I do want to add that my favorite track was I put here in the notes, Dreamy Heaven Highway. Do you know that one?
Yeah, the one that's in the sky and it's like loops all over. Yeah, that's
There's
really
a couple
cool one too.
Every time, like even the Grand Prix one, like all the tracks that were set, or the races that were set on those tracks that I liked, they were just cool. And they felt inventive. I guess it's sort of like not a far cry from Rainbow Road and like Mario Kart, which I don't like those tracks because they're fucking hard all the time. They're fucking annoying.
I always lose.
Yeah, I always lose and I hate it. But yeah, like like you were saying, the tracks you go to like beachside cities, to cyberspace. There's a cyberspace track. There's one where you're like in a little play palace, not a play palace. What would you call it?
Like a playpen, and like like you had to like hop on like a domino and shit.
Yeah, it plays up the aspect that you're like tiny cars, even though like I guess in the real world you're not, because everything is like to scale. But when you go to that level, it's like everything's giant, so you feel like a tiny car.
Yeah.
So there's like really fun levels, and yeah, they were like, really just they stood out. And I feel like for a racing game, that is probably enough. Have fun cars to choose, like give me a bunch of cars, and then have good tracks. And that I feel like a racing game really only needs those two things to be like a good racing game.
And then and it succeeds because the bodies, they get way more wacky the more you unlock. And I like that. I always swap between the new wacky ones and stuff, except for the trucks. I hate trucks. So
I don't think I had any of the trucks really, but I don't know. Do you have anything else to say about the presentation?
Not because it's an aesthetic that's just like, it's nice. Like it's pleasing. It's a very pleasing aesthetic and a very pleasing feel and look to everything. But I can see what you mean where it feels like a Saturn game.
And I think what's interesting too is the music. The music is the most obvious part that they were on a budget to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of repeating tracks.
Well, not only that, but like the sounds that were chosen, I'm like, damn. Like this sounds like the most generic MIDI thing you could find.
They loaded up like Ableton and chose the first.
Yeah, like it was like not mixed. It's all like flat EQ'd. Like it doesn't sound like, I don't know. I feel like they could have done more with the music, but the music, some of it is catchy. There was like the Jurassic levels specifically. Yeah, there's a track on there that I'm like, hey, this gets this goes.
This bumps in the whip.
This fucking. Can you bump it in the web? No, it was good. I don't know. Like it was. You know what what fucking song was fucking fire? Was the intro song in like when
boom 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 boom. Oh,
yeah, and then
that's a great one.
I'm just like, damn, that's yeah. It sounds like something that would be, or that I guess you would like, but also that would be like on like in our repertoire of music that we use for Back at the Rack and stuff.
For the outros.
yeah, which we'll probably use one of them, but if we could find the soundtrack.
What did you think about the gameplay about the game?
You want to jump into gameplay? Fine, fucker. We'll do that.
Just because this is a part for me that I was like, as you were telling me about it, I was like, thank you. He has the same thoughts as me. That's all that matters. Please.
that's all yeah, gameplay. Why don't you? Well, I guess you kind of described what you felt about it, but do you have anything else to say? Because it sounds like your experience was sort of like bogged down by its like obtuseness or whatever, which I think in our last episode we talk about, just modern sensibilities ruin our capability to enjoy old games, and I feel like that still plays
into this game
into this game for you more specifically. Me, like I don't know, I think it was more I think you might have just burned yourself out.
Yeah, I was about to say that too. And I think it's because I wasn't expecting it. So the more I played, the more I was like, oh, okay, they keep at. Because when I started, I didn't expect the crazy story. I knew you were saying it was a car RPG, but I didn't expect to what extent we were getting it. Or when I would do the events and this shit would happen and I'm getting these items and I'm like, whoa, what is this for? Like trying to figure out how to get to the Grand Prix. Then once I got to the Grand Prix, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. This is a big difference of gameplay styles. Like I actually have to care about HP.
Yeah.
I have to care about like how many laps I do, how my partner is doing, like boxing people out for them. Like it was a huge stark change in gameplay. And I like that. I like that everything that I was doing kept adding on more. And I felt like every time I played, I was like, yeah, I'm really liking this. And I think it was a good 4 to 5, because we started playing this one in December, and I knew for like a week I wasn't going to be able to play it. So I no-lifed it for a week. And when I came back, because right before I left, I think that's when I unlocked Grand Prix and crafting. And I was like, yo, this game just keeps getting crazier and crazier. But I liked it. And I was like, I like all the systems. I like crafting. I like the way that shit moved. I like the way that you felt when you progressed, when you bought a new engine or you bought new tires, and the immediate gratification you felt when doing it in an actual race. But when I came back and I played it for another week, the same way I played it beforehand, I felt locked in because I couldn't progress the Grand Prix because I had all the best stuff that you could buy at this point. And I felt like I could not even get close to 5th or 6th place at this point, even with all my upgrades. And then I was trying to find crafting material. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I just got to craft a little bit. And if I craft, then I can get some better things and progress in the race and progress in the story. But I was kind of like the bouncer for like the end game content just popped up and said, nah, bro, not no more, bro. And just stopped me. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what am I supposed to do? You know what I mean? And I think I was going to say that too. I think I burnt myself out mentally and physically when it came to this game because of me wanting to experience all the content and not being able to experience. Like, that's what I was saying. Like, this is a game that you're not supposed to you're not supposed to sprint. You're supposed to marathon this game. You're supposed to play this in the background. Yeah, you're supposed to pace yourself. Like, if I could replay this game, I would have did the events more because I was just racing. I was just racing, buying shit, not giving a fuck about the events. Like, who cares about the events? But then I realized, oh no, you're supposed to be doing the events and going around the town way more than you are supposed to be racing. And if I was doing that, I probably would have paced myself better and just like you were just getting the Grand Prix and being like, oh, okay, cool. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But I think that's all it is to it. I really enjoyed the game.
I do want to circle back. I mean, we were talking about gameplay, but I just want to circle back to what you were saying, which was how much or how long your play sessions are supposed to be for this game. And I feel like with any sort of RPG game that sort of has like, you know, quests and like you kind of have to explore a little bit and maybe you don't know what to do or you're stuck on a boss battle so you have to like take a break. I think this game has all those and like you play it, you know, at your leisure. It could become repetitive, this game. But also because what I did was I would play it, I would do a couple things, you know, get a couple of quests out of the way, maybe do a job or two, do a couple races and get money and then, you know, get new parts and then sort of like move up that way. And there was a good enough variety for a racing game, mind you. Like there's a good enough like variety where I was like satisfied and I would leave and I would come back. And there's a couple parts like right now with the Grand Prix that we both didn't, you know, finish because it's so difficult.
It's so hard.
It was just like I would play maybe 3 hours at a time, and I think that was like a good, like, I think that's a good normal amount to play a game like this.
Yes.
Whereas like maybe like our last game, State of Emergency, I could probably only play that for like 30 minutes to an hour before I'm like,
all right, I'm turning this shit off.
yeah, I'm fucking I'm good. Or maybe the game before that, which was
Batman,
like
or Indivisible,
you know,
if you technically.
Yeah, in short bursts, you know. No, I think I no lifed Indivisible for a little bit. I think I jumped back. Yeah. So actually, Indivisible was a little piece of trivia. I started it, and then I just picked up.
You just picked up where you left off?
Yeah, because when did I start it, though? Yeah, I started. I didn't restart it just for this fucking podcast. I was like, oh, well. Because I remembered it so vividly, like the beginning. I was like, well, it was still early on. But yeah, like I would play maybe an hour, 2 hours of Indivisible at a time. And I would jump into other things. Because I think with games that we play, especially when it's not a game, like when it's not a game you've ever played or a game I've ever played, you kind of have to like give it that time to breathe. Because like when you're forcing yourself to play a game, to finish it or to do anything like that, I think any game becomes like, well, I don't know what to like I don't know what to do. Like Second Sight, I remember was kind of like that for me. And I learned quickly. I'm like, okay, I can't play games like this anymore. Because that was your choice, right? And so you had played it and so you kind of
Yeah. So I already I knew what to do a little bit. So I was like, all right, I know how this game's gonna make me act. So I need to think like that. I know I need to look at this dumbass computer and shit. Like
yeah, and it was only a 6-7 hour game, and like I was like, double. I was like, I just cannot fucking just handle this right now because I was like forcing myself to play it for longer than I needed to, and just
the frustration of not progressing was taking a toll on your overall impression of the game.
Yeah, I feel like that happens a lot, so it's hard to be fair sometimes to these games, but I do understand like with the gameplay, like the racing is fun, and I think that like I was mentioning, physics would make it better, but it feels good, especially when you get like the better parts and like you're turning and it just feels right. There are times where you're fucking bouncing around like a fucking basketball and just like I'm like, what is going on? Like I wasn't sure, like especially like with stairs.
Oh, it was a wrap. There's a couple stairs where you just
just fly. I'm like, wait, what is that? No, now I'm in last place.
Did you unlock the underground races?
What? No. Underground races.
So there's a guy in Nyack Town that you talk to, and he's like, it's tough races, I think they're called. And he would be like, hey, bro, give me like 50K. And then you give him 50K, and he's like, are you going to tell anybody? And you're like, no. And then he's like, all right, bet. You can do tough races now. And They're like tough. They're like all races where all the cars are black, and you have to do these tracks, and they literally will like go out of their way to hit you, and like they'll ram into you, they'll slam you, they'll slam on their brakes, like they just do annoying shit.
Oh
but it's a really fun race.
Just like it's novel enough for like, yeah, this is cool.
Yeah, but it's just certain races like that where I think about them and I'm like, I don't know. Because see, I want to rephrase that to where I make it sound like I'm not liking this game or that my opinion was jaded by the fact that, I had played this for long burst hours. I think more or less what I think it's the same sentiment that I have of like playing old Warriors games. Where it's like, I know it could be better because I have proof. You know what I mean?
Because I've played better.
Yeah, exactly. I've played Dynasty Warriors 7. I know it could get better.
Yeah.
And
did you not play Dynasty Warriors 8?
No. We've been over this.
That makes sense. Yeah. I'm like, because you always mentioned 7. I'm like, but 8 is so much better.
8 is 7 XL.
But 9 is so much better. No, okay. Oh, speaking of which, Dynasty Warriors 9 Empire is coming out. Are you gonna pick that up? February?
Nah.
You're not gonna pick it up. Nah.
I'll wait on it. I learned my lesson. I still need to play regular 9. I'll wait on it.
I learned my lesson with Samurai Warriors 5.
You know what's funny? I actually put that in my PlayStation 5 today, and I played it, and I was like, "Wow, this shit is really fun."
Yeah, well, on PlayStation 5, yeah, I can only imagine.
I guess all the DLC
smoother, right?
No, this is a season pass because you know how like you couldn't find like the ultimate weapons and shit like that. It was just so weird to unlock. So like they give away ultimate weapons as DLC for like the season pass. And
You bought the season pass?
Yeah, it was like with the pre-order bonus, I think, or some shit. I swear. I don't know how I got it, but I had the season pass, unless I paid for it. Maybe I did. I don't fucking know. And a couple of the DLC missions are really fun. They really add a bunch to it. I dig it. I dig it. But that's how I feel with Choro
Q. Just shut up.
But that's how I feel with Choro Q, where I'm like,
yeah.
I feel like they made another one after this one that's better.
What's really weird. Well, let me back up. I don't want to jump into that just yet. Okay, so just back to gameplay. Basically, you're in the garage, kind of like I mentioned earlier, and you can select races, or you can look at your letters that people around the town will send you, depending on if you've interacted with them or if you haven't, and depending on the time of day. And from that point, you kind of just drive around town, and maybe you'll get a letter from one of the characters saying, "Hey, go to this place for that." Or I heard there's something at the old house by the river or by the ocean, but he's only there at like during the night. So there's always like some like weird quirk, and you kind of have to like play around with when to go. So you're like driving around. There's shops around the town too that you can enter, and then once you enter the shop, it becomes available in your garage as a internet like you could just buy
whatever
it from your garage
instead of having to go there. But you can't buy like specific like mascots, like little dangly things that you can hang on the side of your car. You can't buy those.
Those are cool. So and then obviously when you do quests, you can either get money or sometimes they'll give you a part. And sometimes they give you CDs, and I didn't even get a CD player yet. I don't even know where to get one.
You go to the first part shop. You have to physically go to the first part shop. Under mascots, It's a car radio. And you buy that and equip it, and then you can
Yeah, so they'll give you CDs, and I guess there's maybe some bangers on there. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to go back and check it out.
Maybe I should just race a little bit.
Yeah, maybe I should play the game. Yeah, so that's sort of the gameplay loop. You're kind of just going around town, and then you're going to whatever maybe a letter says, and then you're maybe doing some races because there's cups, and they're sort of arranged by tier. So it's like, the Sunrise Cup or something is like level 3 races. Yeah. And it just kind of lets you know, like, okay, these are easier, and then it gets a little harder. And then you're looking essentially to join a team for the Grand Prix. And then once you do so, you are given a whole new menu in your garage, a whole new item to select. It lets you sort of pick who you want to race with, what strategy you guys are going to use during the race. And
You have to sign up a
what
month in advance, so you have a whole month to prepare.
yeah, and you have like what equipment they'll use and stuff. So that already like opens up a whole like, it's far
Giant
more
can of
deep.
worms.
Yeah, it's really deep. And sometimes I was like, shit, I don't. That's I don't know. That's hard.
Then when
The
you get
shit.
into the race, at first I thought it was like when you first do the first race and it's like 5 laps on this long ass track, and you're like, okay, I finished that race. I was like, okay, that was a fun Grand Prix because it unlocks like your chassis and your tires have a life bar, and you have these pit stops that you have to go through to
Yeah,
refill it. And you have to manage like, do I go in this pit stop at this point, or do I keep holding out while I survive? And driving incorrectly
risk.
or
Yeah,
spinning out, it messes, or bumping into people, it messes up your, damages you more. And then you
yeah,
finish that first race and you're like, okay, cool. That was a nice, fun Grand Prix. What's my prize money? No, that's just the first of 5
yeah. That's
races.
yeah. I think the game here, it really teaches you like, okay, so you're gonna go into the race, you're gonna get some sort of reward right after, and the reward for each race increases exponentially. And so you're kind of used to like, okay, I come in first, I get the top prize, you know. And then when you go into the Grand Prix, it changes the game, or rather makes it deeper. So like not only it's like, okay, you have to take everything you learned, but now you kind of have to choose proper tires that might last longer. Now you have to pay attention to what chassis you have, how much damage it takes, and then you have to manage all that along
You
with your
also have to
team
manage your
members.
teammate. You have to make sure they get a higher point, because it's not just based on, it's like Mario Kart where it's like, I
It's a
have
total
to,
score.
yeah, I have to get points. My teammate also has to get points. So I have to make sure he's well equipped so that he gets also a higher position in the rank so that we go up.
Yeah.
It's just
It's a team
crazy.
effort for sure. And I mean, that's not unlike, real Grand Prix racing with teams, but um they do it. I don't know. I appreciated it. It was done well. I don't play racing games through and through like that to know like, oh, well, this is a common thing they do, but I liked it. It was cool. And then, racing feels good. Those Grand Prix races are way too hard.
And
And
way
I
too
spent
long.
like you're spending 20 minutes on one track and it's
You have
just
to do
like you're
25 laps.
my control the grip I had on my controller. I was like, oh my god, I cannot anymore. But yeah, it was fun and they're tense, and it's just like, oh
It really
shit,
does
this
give
is
you the feeling
fucking
of like, oh, I'm signing up for a grant. Like, this is
yeah,
the race. Like, you feel it after
yeah,
playing it.
yeah. And it feels deserved too. Everybody's like congratulating you. You have this best friend that sort of follows you through some of the races. And he comments, on you being, well, I guess finding a team. And it's fun and it feels like a little adventure, a little car adventure. But yeah, I think more importantly, it feels fun to play. And unlike something like State of Emergency, where it's like this is all there is, this game offers so much in the way of rewards, in the way of making you feel like your car is now better than it was before.
Because
You
when you
know,
first start out, you're like, I can barely get first place. But then you buy
yeah,
like an engine upgrade and you can immediately see the improvement of your speed as you fly through
yeah.
people.
It's really it feels great, and that I nominate this game for back of the rack of the year. All
Bro,
early into
we get a little too early
it.
here, guys. Whoa.
So, yeah, I think that's kind of all I really have to say about the gameplay aspect. I do have some nitpicks that I can think of. One is when you're driving around town,
And you
it's
accidentally run
so
into
annoying.
people?
It's
Bro.
so annoying. I'm like, why would they have it where you just touch them? It begins a whole dialogue.
And then
It's already
sometimes you're
hard.
trying to get
It's
the fuck
hard.
away from them and they keep touching you and you're like,
Yeah, or like you
stop.
move. Yeah, like it. I'm like, what? I wish too I wasn't a huge fan of like the top down view. You know,
I wish
I
it
wish
was
it was
like behind me.
third person. Yeah, like just
Of
like which it can be because like they had a lot of
certain
the
events and stuff.
certain events and certain jobs, which yeah, it would be a third person view of the town, which I feel like was just more immersive. I really wonder why they chose that view for just like the town navigation. The map I think was confusing at first. So you have the map in the right corner, and you kind of like it doesn't. change with when you're facing north or whatever, so it's easy to get lost on like where you are relative to where you need to be on the map.
And you can
So you
press
have to like
R1 to open up an actual map that shows where each thing is, but it's
you have
also
to like
it's static.
yeah, yeah, it's static. So you have to like map. You have to like, okay, so that guy's house is there. Press R1 to like make the map go away, and then you have to look at the little mini map to be like, okay, wait, where am I
That's
at in
over there.
relation to that? Yeah. So it was a little annoying to navigate, but once you were around town enough, you're like, okay, I
I
know
know where his house
that
is.
landmarker. Yeah, I know. Okay, so that's closer to that. Yeah. But like with like some of the older towns or the newer towns, I was like, fuck this. Especially
Yes.
Nyaki, I was just like,
I
I don't
still
care
don't
where
know
any of
shit
this
in the
is at.
Aggie.
Yeah.
Because having the
I
shit, you
was-
can't even go in anyway in the Aggie. So it's like, what the
yeah,
fuck?
yeah. Um, gameplay aspects, all the mini games were
Are you about to say
they.
ass?
I was gonna say half-ass, but they were fun. Like obviously they
I
couldn't
like
do
them.
much. No, yeah, they no. Like they're listen. Like they're all like they're all like clearly it's a racing game, so they can't do much outside of being
Drive
able
your
to just
car.
drive your car. And that's like the main thing. So they're not going to invest all this time into because they have a fishing game in it, and it's just like it's bare bones as fuck. And like they have a couple of side jobs that you can do. One of them is
Like
like a
the
garbage man.
firefighter, you can't like aim the fire to put out the fire. You just kind of got to just stand there and go, is it
Right.
is it working?
Yeah. There's a delivery service one. There is
The haunted
a
house.
patrol game sort of thing. And it's all like based around driving. And it's kind of cute, especially with like some of the like, fishing. You're like a little car and you're like finding the spot
And you
you
just
want.
got a
And then
pole
pull, yeah.
attached
Or
to your bumper.
the haunted house, you're driving around a house and like the doors are opening. It's just funny because you're like a little car. But I don't know. I think it really added those mini games, although they were half-assed, like they added so much to like breaking up what could be a otherwise monotonous, like just story or gameplay experience. Because I was so excited. Like obviously, like the racing is fun, but
the
you
events
do it over
excited
and
me
over.
more than the races after a while.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, what is this game? Oh, it's like at the plant. This. Oh, okay. What is it like? And they were
Yeah.
just so random. Like the one where you go to the lab and there's he's like,
Oh,
hey,
and you have to
can
like do the
Yeah.
thingies.
It's
I
just
don't
like
even know what they're called.
it's like mini games, but like they're not random. As in, like it's like, oh, this feels misplaced. Like it just feels
They all
like
feel like they
oh,
have a place, but they're very distinct in each one. Like
Very.
the harbor, having to race all the way down the harbor as fast as you can, and then
stopping
stop.
before, playing chicken, yeah. So there's a lot of that fun stuff, and I don't know. I think it's excellent overall. Like I don't know how else to put like the gameplay.
If it wins you over, it wins you over. Like if you
Yeah.
like it's very charming, and if it wins you, it's got you. It's got its grips on you. It's got
Yeah.
you by the balls, like Cat Williams and Friday After Next.
I think if you're a casual racing fan and if you like RPGs, I think there's no reason why you wouldn't love this game.
Yeah. Like I feel like this game would be a lot more fun with the context of like I can just play it whenever. I can figure this out. Yeah, I'll look that up, see if I can figure out what this synthesize was. Well, yeah, figure that out. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, it sucks
I don't
too
know.
because like you have to play the game before you get like before you before we record the podcast. So it does a lot of the time, and it sucks because we also want to give these games a second chance or a fair shake, or shed light on if they're great games or maybe they're not. But you want to be fair to them, but it's like you have the pressure of finishing it before a certain time, and then just writing about it, and then you're just like, I don't know, like I feel like it really affects how much enjoyment you can get out of the game itself when it's like you're on some sort of time budget, and then also you know.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so I don't know. Those things affect it heavily. And I really don't think we have to talk about story for this.
Because what story, bro? It's
Yeah,
like,
I mean, there's a story, but like,
it's like State of Emergency where it's there, but it's like,
yeah.
yeah.
I would say it was more. It's definitely more engaging, more in your face for sure. But it's fractured, and I like the way you put it in the document where, you know, like there's some scene. It's lopsided. Like some scenes can be really good and move you to tears, and then others feel more contrived. Which is basically, you know, because you have random events that are connected to or separated from the story. So like when you go to a random house and talk to somebody, they might have something interesting that might resonate with you. Or not, you know, and you're just like, that was stupid or that was underwhelming or whatever. But it's fun. And I think spoiling some of those moments for you guys would sort of lessen any impact if you guys were to play this game at all, which I don't even know. But I will say one standout for me was I have two.
You got two?
That I can think of. The first one is the time machine, the going back in time.
That was really cool. I like that one. That's where I got the double wings from.
Because I didn't expect that at all, and it was, again, it's like so thoughtful, and by that I mean like they created a whole gameplay element around it, and then you actually go back to like the Stone Age, and then you're like exploring for a little bit, you know. Oh well, let me back up and explain. So in the middle of your hometown, there's a fountain, and there's this guy who's just like, yeah, you know, I have a theory that if you go around this a couple times, you know, you can travel back in time. And like, you just don't think that you're like
shut
okay,
the
whatever.
hell up.
Yeah, like, okay, like you're just trying to be quirky. Like, it's just like, you know, they're writing, okay, this is a guy who whatever. But then like, he's like, yeah, do you want to try it? And you're like, okay. So it takes you to a whole like little race event, you know, and you just driving around it 10 times, you know, and then it just transport you back to like this fucking, essentially that town, but like, I don't know, 500 years ago or something. And it's just like this stone block, and like, it's pretty
crazy. It's bonkers.
But it's just like, what?
I'm actually mad because that's the one event that I did that I wasn't recording, and it made me so mad. Because when I did it, I was like, yo, what the fuck? And then I looked over, I was like, oh, I'm not recording right now. It's too late.
Well, you could do it again, though. You know that, right? You could go back. You could just talk to him again, and then he'll.
You can go back again? Oh, say less.
Yeah. What was your favorite event? Oh, wait, two. My second one was the haunted house little story thing.
I was going to say my haunted house was my favorite event.
Oh, okay.
Just because that's the one event where they wanted you to drive slow and they made you drive slow. Every other event where they want you to drive slow, they just like, oh yeah, you got your full racing engine in here? Like the towing mini game where it's like, yeah, you got to drive 2 miles an hour. I can't with a tap of an X button. I go 70.
It's not pressure sensitive. What do you mean?
I immediately go 100 miles when I press X. I can't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, those ones were good. I feel like there are some other ones, but I should have wrote them down. There are some other like little charming ones. I like the one that you were just talking about, that with the ghost lady or whatever, the ghost cake story.
Yeah, that was that was the one that immediately made me go like, oh, because at first I was just doing it. I was like, whatever. But then that's the one I did, and I was like, oh, let me see what else these have to do, because that's really cool. I like that one.
Yeah, there's the other story too of like the guy. He's like he's like a steamroller or something, but he cleans your car.
Oh yeah,
like
and then you like donate him the money.
Yeah, like little things like that really brought like level of character and charm to the whole game, because it's just like, oh, some guy sitting there, and then like you hear about him and you go get your shit shined.
A hobo car, just like, let me shine your shoes. Like, give me $5, I shine your shoes.
Yeah, and then it turns out that he has like this rare book that this politician wants, and then like you give, I don't know, it's just like a cool sequence of events. I was like,
I didn't expect that.
Yeah, this feels like it felt like a real world, because there's like a whole political system. There was like an embassy. There was like a museum. Like there's just so many. Yeah,
you hear gossip in like the bars and stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, the story is just overall the story is pretty basic, but like the little stories and quests within really make the whole adventure feel good.
Yeah.
Dare I say better than those? Yeah, I would say they're better than Final Fantasy 12. This is Quest.
All right, now.
Let me.
Well, to be fair, Final Fantasy 12's quests are pretty they're pretty lackluster, I would say. If it's not a hunt,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
yeah, like non-hunt side quests were very like I forgot that exists. Like the one where it's what's the bunny people's name again? I forgot, but it's like one of the bunny girls.
The Viera?
Like, yeah, there's a Viera girl, and she like is in every town, and she's trying to like find a man to date, and you like help her out, like that side quest.
Yeah, no, it's definitely just as good as Final Fantasy 12 for sure. And that's impressive because this is a $20 budget car PG, and that's Final Fantasy 12. that cost so much money, I'm sure, to make, and looks 10 times better than this game. So it's just funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about what some of the reviewers were saying on the web back then. So you want to read them?
I'm going to read the entire I'm going to read the entire IGN review right now.
What? How long is it?
It's not that long. It's like 4 paragraphs.
All right. Well, let's read the short ones first.
Let's read the short ones. Let's go ahead. Read the short ones first.
So, looks like we got a couple. One from OneUp, GameSpot, and GameZone. I don't think I've ever heard of GameZone. So let's see. All right. The game has a certain amount of charm, but at times feels like The Sims only, with automobiles as avatars and racing as the day job. There are glitches in the graphics and an AI that goes from passive to cutthroat in a hurry. If you are looking for a racing game, there are better ones on the market. If you're looking for a game that has charm and some RPG elements, this may be worth a look.
6.7. Honestly, like his score, I would agree with it. 6.7, waning towards more of a 7. I could feel that. But this is a very like I don't want to say game. Let me rephrase that. It's a very you know what I mean?
I would say I would give it an 8, and I agree with the sentiment of if you're looking for a racing game, there are better ones on the market. But I don't think that's the point. I don't think that's the point of this game.
It wasn't trying to compete with the rest of the race. Yeah.
Exactly. This is literally a game. Its own thing, which
it's
I
like
feel
saying,
like makes. What?
It's like saying Dynasty War. If you're looking for a beat 'em up, there's other good beat 'em ups on the system. Exactly. It's like, no, Dynasty War. It's its own thing, bro. Like, what are you talking about?
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. So I feel like, no, that's kind of its own. And then he says there are glitches in the graphics. Did you run into any glitches? Aside from like my car fucking
up everywhere. Maybe I don't think that was a glitch. That might be what they're talking about. I don't.
Yeah. Because it did feel a little like buggy. Like I don't know if my car's supposed to be fucking clipping through. Yeah,
because if you like flip off one station, you might go like, oh,
and you have no control too once you're out. You're in the air,
you're just fucking gone.
All right, let's read GameSpot's. Without the context provided by the line of toy cars to fall back on in the U.S., Choro Q comes across as a quirky, cutesy racing game with poor graphics and even poorer racing mechanics. The purported RPG elements do at least provide a somewhat unique structure for the game, but they don't add a lot of appreciable depth to the experience. The racing genre has evolved in some significant ways over the past few years, but Choro Q seems like it's just been spinning its wheels. Wow. I didn't read that one beforehand, so I'm...
You're a little bit shocked? Appalled?
Yeah, quirky, cutesy game with poor graphics, even poorer racing mechanics. The purported RPG elements do at least... Yeah, that's... I mean,
that's really, like, that's what I was going to say. Like, that's really how... Like you were saying, how it feels like a PlayStation 1 game. Like, that's really how it feels like. And looking at the evolution of Choro Q Games video, it seems like they haven't really changed much.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they've sort of stayed in their pocket.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you only really have to improve the racing mechanics, but I'm also not I don't know that to say poor graphics and poor racing mechanics, because I would say, I mean, the game feels good to play for sure. I don't know, like to race around and stuff. It doesn't feel like ass. And it's also weird because the cars are shorter and stockier. So you don't get, I don't think you get a lot of the complexities you do when you get like a, 1-to-1 scale
big,
car. Yeah, that has like, the weight and like, oh, well, I want to turn here. So, you kind of, I don't know. But yeah, we haven't played any of the other games, so maybe this guy has. So to say something like Choro Q seems like it's been spinning its tires or spinning its wheels. I guess it's sort of like the Dynasty Warriors argument as well.
Where it's like it's the same shit, bro. When the Mongolians gonna attack,
and then 9 comes in and then fucking does its I guess changes up the formula to some degree, but in the worst possible way.
I don't like that. Go back.
It was mainly the combat that really made Dynasty Warriors 9 so ugly. They changed that, so and they I don't know why. But this is a review from 1UP. If all Choro Q intended to do was to offer something new to drive, its quick race mode satisfies that count. A few laps could easily lull you into the misimpression that this was just a simple but serviceable little racer aimed at the kids market. You would never expect that starting the story mode would open the door to a Toy Story of expansive proportion. But like a Pixar film, the refusal to take a dumbed-down approach delivers a smart, sophisticated adventure that elevates Choro Q well above the ordinary. From humble beginnings of selecting a starting body springs your story as a young Choro Q into a toy fantasy world with dreams of rising to the top of the racing circuit. That's
great. I like that.
That's that one's good, and that's the one I would agree with because I'm so partial, because that's how I came to find out in this, like he's saying, you could have the misimpression that this is just like a simple but serviceable racer aimed at the kids market. But then you jump into that fucking story mode and it's like, holy shit, wow.
What is this?
Yeah. So I guess it depends on what maybe you're going into. And it just hit me right now, but the cars are called Choro Q. I don't even fucking...
Yeah, they are called Choro Q. That's the race.
I thought that was just yeah, exactly. I thought that was just like the name of like the franchise.
The big race, yeah. I'm going to be the king of Choro Qs or some shit.
But to say like a young, I think they do mention that too in there a couple times, and I was like, wait, what? Why are they saying the game's name? But yeah, I guess you're not a car, you're a Choro Q.
Yeah.
Go ahead and read the IGN one.
Oh man, you ready for this one? About to tear your childhood a new one. Subtitle: This game is garbage. It's not often that IGN editors will gather around a single desk to gaze in a horrified wonder at a game so preposterously awful that it's actually capable of annihilating sentient life. This particular black hole of a PlayStation 2 title happened to be Choro Q, the 1,000th title in a series of other unfathomably lame Choro Q games. Right now, it's sucking the universe and bending light. Choro Q is a cosmic harpy. It attracts its feeble prey with its lustrous use of all 3 primary colors, twanging bleeps and blangs and disproportionate animated cars that talk and say totally useless things like wee and kazao. Once you've been caught in its charm, Choro Q unwraps its hooks, tentacles, and latches onto the very fabric of life that binds your spirit to your body. Then it starts to rip and tear like a crocodile rolling in a river with a buffalo's throat between its jaws. It's a car RPG. That means that Choro Q forces players to meander over some perfunctory towns so that they can build themselves up with new parts and converse with other cars. Unfortunately, it's a waste of time, and the characters that can be spoken with often provide absolutely zero interest. Sadly, the gameplay follows suit, and it seems like developing an exciting and decent driving game took the backseat to the role-playing elements.
Is that it?
I'm not gonna. No, there's like 3 more paragraphs. I was scrolling and there's just a random ass screenshot that just scared the fuck out of me. I'm sorry, but Here's how it works. You wander around town, speak to baffling, stupid car habitants of your crappy Carsville, and pick a race or two. Most of the conversations you'll have are literally pointless, as in without a point. There are times where you park at a house and be loaded into a brief, non-interactive cutscene just to see something like "There's no one here." If you're lucky enough to speak to people, you might get something like "Hi." That's about as riveting as it gets. Did I mention the interface? It's poorly designed and is, well, garbage, quite frankly. How about those graphics? These poorly done, way behind technology curve. Unfortunately, the sound is just as medieval, with nary a memorable song or sound effect worth remembering. And the racing? Oh, and the racing? Excuse me for saying so, but Choro Q has one of the dumbest racing systems ever. Possibly the dumbest. Pole position on Atari was a better planned racer. Choro Q starts off painfully slow. Then, with the help of all the car upgrades and stuff, you eventually get up to golf cart speed, which is where the game really picks up, regardless of whether or not you're moving slow or fast. However, you'll like your tuning. You'll never like the tuning. It seems like the left and right directions are still a mystery that lies somewhere between the scope of Choro Q's design. What other way is there to put it? If you want to know what a box of suck looks like sitting on your shelf, buy Choro Q.
What the fuck?
That's what I'm saying, bro.
What?
I pulled that shit up. I was like, what the fuck, IGN? Damn.
I feel like there was not, I'm not one to not listen to another's point of view on something, but I feel like there was not a solid,
it was very biased.
Like there was not a solid argument at all in there as to like, aside from like using adjectives like, crappy town. It's like, well, what makes it crappy? Or like, well, why? Like he didn't explain, well, what makes the racing bad? Like just like, well, saying that it starts slow, it's like that was the only thing where I'm like, okay, well, I could see why but lots of good games start slow.
Lots of great racing games. Most great racing games start slow.
Yeah, like didn't describe there was not. I mean, I feel like it could have really like if he had any good arguments, he could have like actually dismantled it and maybe even convinced me like, oh yeah, you're right. But like all that was just sound like someone that was angry about the game and that.
That boy didn't buy tires first.
Yeah, he didn't. Yeah,
that boy didn't buy tires and steering first, and he was like,
yeah. But I guess he did make a good point about like sometimes you would go into a house and no one's there, and you just like the cutscene plays out, and it's like,
well, what the fuck was the point of that? Yeah, you could have just told me that before I walked in.
Yeah, or like no one's home before, like as you're trying to enter, but it says like no one's home. And yeah, some of them do say dumb things, but that's every RPG. If you talk to everybody,
if you go into every town, then if you go into every house in every JRPG town, there's going to be some people that just say 100 years ago this happened in this lake. You're like, okay, what the fuck? You got something nice?
Yeah, like Nana never lets me play by the river, so I just play by the barrel. Just like stupid basic
some random kid, and he's just
exactly, like. So I don't know. It's just like, okay, well, I don't know. But yeah, that was harsh. I'm glad you read that.
Yeah, because I read that and I was like, yo.
Yeah, so I think as we're wrapping up here, I want to just bring this back to the idea of, which we haven't really touched or weaved into what we were talking about too much, but that's just the question of, do Japanese games, were they more willing to experiment with these sort of genres? Like I don't think at the time there was that level of like Harvest Moon and Mario Kart put together. Like that's a pretty like to mix those things together.
And Harvest Moon was already niche on its own as well too.
Yeah, so like exactly. It was like, and I don't even think it's. I mean, I guess Animal Crossing is
still niche, I guess now. I mean, Animal Crossing, I feel like Animal Crossing, Harvest Moon, like all those games, they wouldn't have been as successful as they are now if it wasn't for the success of Minecraft. Because that allowed for people to say, oh, I'm going to just farm, or I'm going to just craft and build. And those games allow you to just craft and build or just farm. And that opened up a world to Why did the green screen just scare the shit out of me, bro?
I was wondering. I'm like, are you all right?
Bro, that shit just scared the fuck. I just turned around. I was like, what the fuck? Who is that, bro? Like, Minecraft was played by billions of people. So, like, everybody's been like, oh, I'm gonna just, y'all go out, y'all go mine. I'm gonna just build a house real quick.
I've always thought, and I don't know how true this is, but I've always thought the Japanese games that I played when I was younger were far more open-ended in their, like, what to do next. Like,
yes,
they were never as hand-holdy. You know what I mean?
Like Persona, like I'm trying to think of like very memorable Japanese games that I've played, like Persona 3 or No More Heroes. Like Persona 3, they kind of just go, hey, you got until this full moon to figure this shit out, so be prepared. Or No More Heroes, where it's like, you got to get $500,000 to fight this next boss. Figure it out. Like,
right.
there's certain, they allow for more thought for you, I guess. And it was acceptable to me because I was like, yo, this is some weird ass game where I have a bunch of demon swords and I slash shit. I'm going to keep crafting them and figuring out new combos and abilities with these swords. Never would have thought about that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like with an American game, I guess, with a Western style game, like Days Gone. Like, I keep bringing up Days Gone, but okay, let's go with Days Gone or like Last of Us or Werewolf. Like stealth games, if you get caught, you fight it out. You know what I'm saying? And then you go back to stealthing about. But Japanese games, like think about Persona 5. That's technically a stealth game, but also a JRPG at the same time.
Yeah, there are some like stealth light elements in there for sure, and they were willing to experiment or put those things together. I'm trying to think of another like Japanese game, and I feel like we have some, but I just can't fucking see my list of games. But yeah, like there's minimal hand holding. It's like, here, like this is what you're gonna do, and this is sort of like
Dark Souls.
Because the Choro Q
technically is
Demon Souls. That's
Demon Souls.
That was like a what the. And I've always said this, but Demon Souls essentially to me is like Mario, but in a 3D landscape. Because so Mario, like Super Mario Bros, right? You're moving side to side, attacking enemies in the most efficient way possible to get to your end goal, right? In Demon Souls, you're essentially just moving in a 3D space, but the enemies all appear in the same place. You're trying to dispatch them in the most efficient way possible to get to that end boss. And then you just move on to the next world. So I feel like I've always felt like Super Mario Bros. And Demon Souls were the same design philosophy, just in different skins and in different a different character view. Yeah. Well, yeah. Because obviously one has heavier RPG elements, but the idea is the same because those enemies, just like the Goomba or whatever, they appear in the same spot every time, and it's your task to like get them for more points because you want the XP and stuff. I think Dark Souls or the Soul series innovates with the idea of like, oh well, if you die, you don't get to keep that shit. You have to get back to the same point to like reclaim your souls or whatever. But I mean, Mario is just as brutal, and it's like how hard
you gotta start the whole level over again.
Yeah, well, I mean, with Dark Souls, yeah, I mean, there's like the bonfire stuff or the, so, but I think like the simple element of like going through a section, attacking the same enemies, knowing where they're at,
knowing what they'll do,
knowing what they'll do, But anyways, I digress. With Choro Q, they tell you like, oh, here's this mission, here's this quest, this objective, but it's sort of said in a way, and it could be a translation issue too, but you're reading it and you're like, okay, so I have to do this, okay, and then you try to do that, but it doesn't work. So it's like, okay, maybe I have to come at night, or maybe I have to do something first to trigger this, There's a little bit more exploring than just like, oh, hey, go to this guy's house right now and get this. And then from that, he's going to let you get that. And then like, it's not all this explanation on like what to do.
Sometimes they don't send you a letter. Sometimes you got to just walk into somebody's house and then
to trigger the whole. Yeah. So it's a little bit more open-ended, a little bit more exploratory. And it's sort of, it's a design that's sort of used to try and get the player engaged in a more inquisitive sense, rather than just like, all right, well, just take me from A to B to C to D. It's like, okay, well, start with A, but you could go to C, but that'll activate quest E, but you won't have what you like. You need to get something from quest B to go to complete E and then go back to. So it's like very, I don't know, something like that. Yeah. That's how I imagine it, or how I would phrase it rather, is like that design philosophy that I feel like Japanese people take more of. But I think this is more true, this statement, that they were more willing to do all that in this era, 2004. Like in that era, Japanese games were more willing to experiment with weird shit.
Yeah.
Now it's like everyone kind of like
everyone's doing some weird shit.
Indie game. Yeah, exactly. Everyone has like their own thing, like, which is great. It's great. But back then, Japanese games were far less straightforward, far more difficult. And I think RPGs in general were just like more brutal.
Yeah, because Daiga's incredibly hard back in the day.
Yeah, because it has so many. There's so much to that game. I'm thinking about it right now.
Shit and I was like, bro, this shit is crazy, bro. You got level 99999, then you can pick him up, you can throw him, items, spear grids.
Yeah. Super complex. What else do we have to say?
Play Choro Q, please. Like, I know we say this with like every game on this podcast except for Batman, but like seriously.
Huh? We didn't recommend Batman?
I don't think we recommended Batman. I think we both were like, nah, bro, don't stop. But Choro Q is one of those games that, just for its uniqueness alone, and for the idea, even like, no matter what, like, especially if you're watching this channel, like, you're probably into weird, I don't want to say weird games, but interesting games that might not be good to you, or might not be or universally praised to you, but it's a game and it does something interesting and it does something that's unusual, that's very intriguing to the normal mind's eye when you play it. Like Choro Q, when I started playing it, I was like the story mode, the events, the car RPG elements, like everything was like, oh, this is interesting. Or I could have put Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition in my fucking PlayStation 2 and played that instead, and just raced and not care about the story. Like, can you name the story of any Need for Speed game other than Most Wanted?
Other than Most Wanted, I can't even name that one. They're ugly and they're very like cringy too.
Exactly, that's the thing with art, like racing
they lack
games.
Charm.
But all racing games, you don't know the story other than I raced, I got a better car, I upgraded my engine, and now I race faster. But this game, I mean, it still follows that same formula.
Yeah, but you are the car.
But you are the car, and you kind of know it a little bit more. It's so interesting to me, and I like that about that game. It's so charming that it makes me want to replay it, but I'm gonna play Road Trip instead and say I played.
Are you gonna play Road Trip?
Yeah, of course, I'm gonna play Seek and Destroy. I'm gonna play Seek and Destroy first. We might say Road Trip for it just in case we do another episode on the podcast.
Yeah, I feel like it would be too.
On our sequel season,
yeah.
We're doing on our sequel season
as we. All right. Well, okay. I guess. Yeah, that's all I have to really say about the game. Let's close this out. Guys, thank you for joining us on this lovely day, MLK Day. Shout out to Martin Luther.
Well, to them, it'll be like, what, March?
Actually, hold on, March.
Happy Juneteenth, guys, I guess. I don't know when we dropping this.
Yeah, well, regardless, thanks for joining us. Play the game. It's cheap. Like, you'll spend less than $20 on it now. It's definitely very unique. There's a lot of people I know on the internet that have very fond memories of it, and I think it still holds up as a playable title today, because the visual style is so distinct. You don't really play anything like it. You know, it's not like playing. You're not gonna. I mean, you could play Gran Turismo, like 3 or something, or 4 on the PS2, but it's like there's already better ones. This is a sort of one of a kind thing, and Road Trip is even more so, I would say. Although I just found out that one is older than Choro Q, so that's confusing to me because Road Trip is somewhat superior from what I remember. But yeah, so make sure you like, share, comment, let us know how we're doing. Reach out to us on Twitter, maybe make a suggestion or any comments on if you've played the game or not. And that's kind of it. Any last words, Sondi, before I
eat your bananas, eat your apples, eat your oranges, eat your fruits, eat your vegetables, and most of all, have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching.
We are Back of the Rack, and you are Choro Q. Peace out.